Silence a powerful woman carries. So quiet, it makes noise in a man's mind long after she's gone. This silence isn't empty. It's filled with mastery, of emotion, of boundaries, of her own energy. And unless you've trained your awareness, you won't notice what she's doing, but you'll feel it deeply. There is a common misunderstanding that power, especially in women, must be loud, that to be recognized, to be valued, to be loved, one must speak more, do more, give more. But true power does not arrive with noise. It enters with presence. A kind of presence that stills the air, that slows time in the room, that makes others instinctively listen. Not because she demands attention, but because her energy commands it. She knows that what truly attracts isn't the volume of her effort, but the depth of her being. This kind of presence isn't built overnight. It is not bought, and it cannot be borrowed. It is cultivated in silence, refined through self-observation, and mastered through repeated trials of restraint. And it is this very presence that is one of the first secrets every powerful woman keeps from men. She does not advertise it. She does not explain it. She lives it. And in doing so, she evokes curiosity, admiration, even reverence. Imagine a woman sitting across from a man. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't rush, doesn't try to fill the silence. She listens, not just with her ears, but with her whole being. Her breathing is slow. Her posture is upright but relaxed. She is completely in the moment, not drifting into the past, not worried about how she is perceived. And the man, whether he's aware or not, begins to mirror her nervous system. His own restlessness softens. He begins to slow down too. Not because she told him to, but because she invited it without words. This is the power of presence over performance. In a world conditioned by digital noise, where appearances are curated and validation is sold in likes and comments, presence has become rare. And what is rare becomes valuable. A powerful woman understands that if she enters a room trying to prove herself, she's already lost something essential. Her center. Performance is often rooted in insecurity. Presence, by contrast, arises from inner stillness. When you have nothing to prove, your energy becomes unmistakable. There is an old teaching from the East. When the mind is quiet, the soul speaks. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. The human brain is wired with mirror neurons, cells that fire not when we act, but when we observe someone else acting. It means we are biologically designed to feel each other's emotional states without words. So when a woman enters a space fully anchored in herself, others feel it. And this is why powerful women can walk into a room and shift its energy without uttering a single sentence. Real life offers countless illustrations of this. Consider the elderly grandmother who sits in the corner of a gathering, saying little, but radiating such calm that children naturally flock to her lap, or the executive woman who barely speaks in meetings. But when she finally does, everyone listens because her words are few but weighty. These women aren't chasing recognition. They are embodying it. And men, in particular, find themselves drawn not to the external, but to the internal posture of such women. It is not about physical beauty. It is about inner composition. And this inner composition brings us to the second secret, emotional alchemy. Every human being experiences emotions: joy, sadness, jealousy, love, fear. But not every human being knows what to do with them. Many people, especially in relationships, either suppress their emotions to avoid conflict or unleash them uncontrollably to assert dominance. Both approaches lack mastery. A powerful woman does neither. She transforms her emotions. She does not leak them. Emotional alchemy is not about detachment. It is about discipline. A powerful woman does not allow a fleeting emotion to control her permanent character. When frustration arises, she feels it fully, but instead of reacting impulsively, she breathes. She creates space. And in that space, she observes. She recognizes the sensation not as who she is, but as something moving through her. This is the beginning of emotional maturity. Modern psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. Emotional regulation, the ability to manage and respond to emotional experiences with conscious control, is directly linked to healthier relationships, better decision-making, and greater mental resilience. In fact, studies show that individuals with high emotional intelligence are more likely to sustain long-term romantic relationships. And what's fascinating is that this regulation begins in the body. Before we speak, before we act, our heart rate changes, our breath shifts, our muscles tighten. A powerful woman has trained herself to notice these physiological cues. She is not at the mercy of her biology. She works with it. There's a story of a woman named Elena who, after years of being emotionally reactive, decided to shift how she handled conflict. Her partner often criticized her tone during arguments. In the past, she would lash out defensively, her words sharp, her voice raised. But one evening, during a particularly heated discussion, she paused. She noticed the tightness in her chest, the shallow breath. Instead of reacting, she inhaled slowly and said, "Give me a moment." She stepped away, took 5 minutes to reconnect with her breath, and returned. Not with more anger, but with clarity. Her partner was stunned. That one act didn't just de-escalate the fight. It changed the dynamic of their entire relationship. He began to respect her differently, not because she overpowered him, but because she showed mastery over herself. This is emotional alchemy. To feel deeply, yet express wisely. To turn reaction into reflection. To allow emotions to inform, but not control. And when a man experiences this, something inside him shifts. He begins to recognize a different kind of strength. Not brute force, not emotional chaos, but composed power. A woman who does not betray herself in the face of emotional turbulence becomes unforgettable. She becomes a mirror for him. Not a mirror of his expectations, but a mirror of his potential. He begins to see how grounded energy can bring more peace than control. He may not understand what is happening at a cognitive level, but he will feel the difference. And that feeling of safety, of stability, of quiet intensity can be more attractive than any physical trait. Some men find this uncomfortable at first. They are used to emotional patterns based on drama, control, or dependency. But a powerful woman disrupts these patterns simply by not participating in them. She doesn't match emotional chaos with more chaos. She doesn't explain herself over and over to gain validation. She doesn't negotiate with her boundaries just to keep the peace. She simply holds her center. And in doing so, she teaches without teaching. This capacity to remain grounded in the face of provocation is not just relationship wisdom. It is spiritual work. It is nervous system regulation. It is the art of self-respect. And every time she does it, she deepens her own sense of identity. She builds a temple within that no storm can tear down. From this place, love flows differently, not as need, not as fear, but as choice. So the first secret, presence, is the foundation. And the second, emotional alchemy, is the fuel. Together, they form an invisible aura that surrounds a powerful woman. It is this aura, not her words, not her looks, that makes men stop, pay attention, and reevaluate everything they thought they understood about connection. As she walks through the world, she may not share these secrets openly. But every man who encounters her will feel them and wonder what it is she carries that others do not. And while he may never fully articulate it, one thing becomes clear: he will never see her the same way again. There are moments in a woman's life when the world will ask her to explain herself, to soften her voice, to accommodate the needs of others, even at the expense of her own inner alignment. In those moments, the powerful woman chooses something else. She chooses to honor her sacred no. It is not a refusal born from arrogance or anger. It is a quiet, firm recognition of her own energy, her time, her values. And it is through this simple, often uncomfortable act of boundary setting that her deepest strength is revealed. Not only to others, but to herself. The third secret every powerful woman keeps from men is this: she does not fear disappointing someone else if it means staying true to herself. A man may not understand at first why she says no to the dinner he planned at the last minute, or why she declines an invitation when her intuition signals something is off. But with time, if he is paying attention, he realizes that her no is not rejection, it is direction. It shows where her integrity lies. The sacred no is not spoken with aggression. It is not a reaction. It is a decision grounded in clarity, and clarity is what creates respect. In psychology, boundary setting is closely linked to the preservation of self-esteem. Studies in emotional wellness show that individuals who communicate their boundaries clearly experience less resentment, less burnout, and more balanced relationships. What's fascinating is that the power of no is not just in the word itself, it's in the energy behind it. This energy speaks a language men often don't hear but instinctively feel. A woman who can say no without justifying, defending, or collapsing under guilt radiates a particular kind of magnetism. It tells a man she belongs to herself. And while this may challenge certain ego-based expectations, it also activates a deeper form of admiration. There's a story of a woman named Amara. She was in a new relationship with a man who was used to being accommodated without question. One evening, he invited her out with very little notice. She paused. Her body was tired. Her spirit needed quiet. Everything in her wanted to say yes just to please him. But she breathed and responded, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I need to rest tonight." There was no apology in her tone, no story to soften the impact, just truth, lovingly delivered. At first, he was taken aback, but as days passed, he found himself respecting her even more. It was the first time he had encountered a woman who didn't betray her own needs just to gain his approval. She didn't play the role. She stood in her truth, and in doing so, she opened a doorway, not just for him to respect her, but for him to reflect on where in his own life he had failed to honor himself. This is the quiet ripple effect of a sacred no. It doesn't merely guard energy. It recalibrates relationships. It teaches others how to approach with sincerity, not expectation. And for the woman who speaks it, it becomes a form of self-remembrance. A reminder that love, when it is real, never requires you to abandon your alignment. In Eastern philosophy, boundaries are not walls. They are membranes, flexible yet firm. They allow what nourishes and release what drains. A woman who has done her inner work no longer feels the need to over-explain. She has outgrown the addiction to being liked by everyone. She does not withhold her no to avoid conflict, because she knows that the cost of peacekeeping is often self-betrayal. And yet, it is not the frequency of saying no that defines her power. It is the consciousness with which she says it. Sometimes, a powerful woman will say yes to things that stretch her, yes to things that require courage. But she never says yes when her inner voice whispers no. She understands the subtle difference between generosity and self-sacrifice, between compromise and collapse. When a man witnesses this, he learns to trust her more, not less. He knows that when she says yes, it's wholehearted. It's not a performance. It's not a transaction. It's a choice made from fullness, not obligation. And this changes the quality of their relationship. It moves from unconscious patterns to conscious presence. That brings us naturally to the fourth secret, the power of mystery. A powerful woman understands that mystery is not a mask. It's not about withholding information to gain control. It's about knowing what is sacred and choosing what to reveal with intention. She is transparent, but she is not exposed. She is authentic, but not emotionally scattered. She is mindful in how she shares herself, because she recognizes that not everything is meant for everyone. There is a difference between openness and overexposure. In today's world, where people share every detail of their lives online, mystery has become a rare virtue, and what is rare becomes precious. The powerful woman doesn't rush to tell her entire story. She allows it to unfold, not to be evasive, but to be wise. She understands timing. She understands resonance. She understands that just because someone asks doesn't mean they are ready to receive what she carries. Mystery, when it is real, does not confuse. It invites. It creates a pause, a moment of reflection. It leaves room for discovery. And in relationships, that space is essential. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is wired to seek novelty. But novelty isn't only about new faces or new experiences. It can exist in depth. A woman who reveals layers of herself slowly, with sincerity and awareness, sustains attraction not through seduction, but through substance. There's an old Zen saying, "When you do not rush, life becomes more fragrant." The same applies to connection. A woman who does not rush to define, to label, to confess everything in the first few moments, allows herself and the relationship to breathe. She remains spacious. And in that space, the connection grows organically, without pressure, without force. Take, for example, a woman named Celine. She had a deep spiritual life, a complex past, and dreams not many understood. But when she met someone new, she didn't unload her history in the first few hours. She listened. She observed. She shared, piece by piece, not from fear, but from discernment. The man she dated once said to her, "You're like a book I can't stop reading, because every chapter reveals something unexpected." And she smiled, not because she was playing a role, but because she was simply honoring her own rhythm. Mystery also protects her energy. In Eastern wisdom, not everything is meant to be spoken. Words have power. What we speak carries life. A powerful woman guards her inner world, not because she is secretive, but because she is sovereign. She doesn't give access to just anyone. She doesn't confuse interest with intention. She watches how someone listens before she shares what matters most. And for the man who truly sees her, who stays curious without demanding, who explores her without trying to control, she becomes a mirror of his own depth. He realizes that to truly know her, he must first know himself, because she won't hand him the map. She will walk beside him, but never ahead of her own truth. Mystery, then, is not manipulation. It is mindfulness. It is the conscious choice to be known slowly, not for the sake of performance, but for the integrity of the connection. A woman who rushes to explain herself often does so from a wound. A woman who waits, who breathes, who allows, does so from wisdom. In intimate relationships, this kind of energy is transformative. It breaks the cycle of codependency. It replaces instant gratification with patient curiosity, and it fosters a deeper kind of intimacy, one that is not based on possession, but on presence. A powerful woman knows this. She doesn't chase being understood by everyone. She doesn't apologize for being complex. She simply lives in alignment with herself, and those who are meant to walk with her will do so, not because she convinced them, but because her energy called to something they already knew deep inside. As she holds her boundaries and guards her sacred spaces, she becomes a sanctuary, not only for herself, but for anyone willing to meet her with respect and reverence. Not everyone will stay. Not everyone will be ready. But those who are will never forget the way she made them feel safe, curious, and deeply awake. There is a type of silence that enters a room before a woman says a single word. It's not empty. It's filled with something alive. Presence, awareness, energy. Before her mouth moves, her body has already communicated volumes. Before she speaks her truth has already shaped the air around her. And it is here that we come to the fifth secret: a powerful woman speaks energy, not just words. This is not abstract. It is physiology. Neuroscience reveals that our brains are constantly scanning for subtle signals. Tone, posture, micro-expressions, even breathing rhythm. These signals are processed through mirror neurons, which tune us to each other's internal states, often without our conscious awareness. So when a woman speaks from a grounded, authentic, emotionally congruent place, people feel her, not because of what she says, but because of how she embodies it. A woman who has refined her energy through self-awareness no longer relies on performance to communicate. Her voice does not chase validation. Her words are not polished to impress. They emerge slowly, intentionally shaped by alignment. Even when she speaks softly, people lean in, not because the volume is low, but because the frequency is high. Her energy carries depth, and depth pulls others into presence. This type of communication is not taught in schools. It is cultivated through stillness, through the practice of feeling what lives beneath the surface of your words. A woman who has done this inner work no longer speaks from pain, but from presence. Her sentences don't come from the wounds of the past. They come from the clarity of the now. And when a man listens, he doesn't just hear her, he experiences her. There's a woman named Mira who once shared her story of transformation.